Dr. McKenna, what are you thinking about today?
So Sabbath, as you know, we surpassed our goal for the number of people we needed to have taken the Wild Trust Index. So we had this big goal for publishing our State of Trust report. And one of the things that I still find so interesting is this preliminary look at the data, and we'll be publishing this State of Trust report, is that we do these quadrants of trust, this matrix that has this 2x2 where it shows organizational trust on the y-axis and then team trust on the x-axis. So you imagine, as in every good psychological 2x2, you're always looking for high and to the right. So you'd be high team trust, team members trust each other, and on the organizational side, there's people trusting are aligning with the mission in the organization. The organization has what we describe as a shell. But if you just have that and the teams aren't trusting each other, it gets almost like an egg where the inside can be a little messy. So we call the high team trust, low organizational trust over on that x-axis. We call that islands of trust. And then a shell of trust is high org, low team. Obviously, we want the high part, and that we call that a stronghold of trust. The low team trust, low organizational trust, we call that the jungle of trust. Because jungles are they're chaotic, right? We need jungles in the world, but they're chaotic. They're a little messy. And here's what's crazy. When I look at the data, 52% of the people in our study are working and living within a jungle of trust. 52%. And when I look at those people, now a lot of them are congregating around the border, so the moves they could make to go into that that high quadrant are not that far. But you and I have been there. Like, you work in a place like that, low trust in the organization, its mission and alignment with that, maybe low trust in your leaders, low trust in your team members. Good golly, it is such a diminishing moment. And so what I'm excited about is our movement toward that stronghold. That's where my brain is right now, which is also, by the way, why I'm excited for our guests. I know you're going to introduce in a second. So one other thing that I'll say is that I hope that people who are listening, you would feel some hope in that, because I had a conversation with a CEO just a couple weeks ago whose organization is a global nonprofit, was in the jungle. And when she looked at the data, you know what she said? Because it's hard. You're a CEO and you're looking at that. She said, I see hope. And her organization's in the jungle, and she sees hope because she knows some things that she could do to focus on some drivers to change it. And so I think this conversation today, I hope, would provide hope to people who are in that kind of moment.
Yeah. Let's get this wild conversation started. Welcome to the Wild Conversation, where human being and human doing converge, reshaping the world of leadership, culture, and performance. Today, we get to have a wild conversation with Nick Anderson. Nick serves as the Chief Executive Officer of One Accord. He is the author of 6 Word Lessons for Middle Managers and founder of Chosen Leader, a platform dedicated to the evolution of leadership skills across various sectors. Also a seasoned banker, Nick's 25-year tenure in the industry was marked by progressive leadership roles and his industry-wide acknowledgement as a rising star by the Independent Community Bankers Association and a place on the Puget Sound Business's Journal's 40 Under 40 list. And most importantly, he is a dear friend to the Wild Leaders team and community. Nick, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun.
Great conversation.
You know what his bio didn't say was he's an incredible wingman. So we were at an event recently, and there was another big event happening, and I think I would hope he would say the same of me. And we were both like, "Are we gonna go? I don't know." And so we're like, "Let's go together."
Yeah,
and we had a great time. So
I'll be your plus one anytime.
To your bio. Please add that to your bio.
Well, and if I can edit my bio, here's the thing: the most important thing about me actually is that I'm husband to Ariana, father to Abigail, Christian, Eliana, and Finn, and they are the center of my life.
There you go.
Absolutely. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
We didn't prep you for this, Nick, but we're going to play a quick round of wild cards. I do believe you are familiar with this deck. I pulled out 10 cards, so we don't have to go through 50. So we'll just choose a number between 1 and 10. I'll go first to start us off. Nick, you'll go next. Dr. McKenna will round us out. I'm going to choose number 4. And it is, what did you experience in the last 24 hours that may have been a moment that mattered? Speaking of your family, Nick, last night we got to go to my kids' family engagement night at their school. And as a family, we've been going to these for 7 years now. Her kindergarten teacher was there, and at the end of the night, we took a picture with her, and I was thinking she might retire soon, but I'm so thankful for the impact she's made on all of my kids. So that felt like a moment that mattered to celebrate her and
That's
make those
awesome.
memories. Okay, pick a number between 1 and
Well,
10.
you took my lucky number, but now that your 4 is out, let's go with the next number 4. What do you think?
Okay, I'll take mine out. All right. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect.
There you go.
What do you need to do today to get to where you want to be tomorrow?
Oh my gosh. I need to go through my calendar and decline a lot of appointments that I have agreed to that I shouldn't have.
No one else will resonate with that at all.
I mean,
That's great.
no,
Good.
that's what I need to do. Will I actually do it?
Uh-huh.
That's
We're going to
another.
ask you. We'll ask
Yeah.
you by the end of the day.
Well, we're
Yeah.
glad you didn't decline this appointment. So, you know, right? It's good.
Yeah.
All right, Rob.
Okay. The new number 4 then.
Okay.
Never
Taking your
done this
number 4
before.
out.
We've never done
Yeah,
this
this is
before.
fun.
Oh, he's going with it.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
What is the unique contribution you bring to every team?
It's one of them. Humor.
Hmm.
I really like to laugh. It's why it's in our corporate charter. We will have fun. So hopefully more than that, but humor. I'm rolling with it.
It makes a difference.
I'm rolling with
Thank
it.
you for going there. I love that.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Thank you, Sab. So Nick, what a pleasure. And that is a wicked backdrop.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it is. It really is something. For the people that are listening, it's a bright red curtain that is really impressive.
And the lighting is epic today, I gotta say.
It really is. It is epic.
Yep.
So one of the places I love to start, and part of it is that, you know, there's some incredible research on the most profound developmental experiences that shaped people and leaders as they are today. And a lot of the experiences, not all of them, but a good portion, a subset, were early career experiences. And just so people can get to know you a little bit, I was wondering if you would talk to us about 1 or 2 early career or early life experiences that have had a profound impact on the leader you are today, and what was that impact?
Yeah.
Would love to hear about. I don't know if I've asked. I know a couple of these that you might say, but I'd love to know.
You know, we've talked about life experiences, and you know, happy to go there. Some of those inform the career experiences, but there's a bridge I'll build between education and career, and that is that I walked off my high school campus before graduating. So I left early without a diploma, with a chip on my shoulder and, you know, a grudge. So I walked into a branch of C First Bank and I said, "Hey, what does it take to get a job here?" I was 17 years old, eventually got hired as a bank teller. So I would put on a button-up shirt and a tie and walk into the branch office of C First Bank that I worked at, stand behind the teller counter, and people thought I was somebody that I wasn't. People told themselves a story about who I was because of where I was and what I looked like. And I realized in that moment that I didn't have to change their mind, that I could be anyone who I wanted to be. It was an alter ego. And there's somebody that wrote a book about this. I don't remember what it was. I'm not good at remembering book titles, but this alter ego. And I leaned into that. You know, I was a shy kid in school. I was insecure. Here again, a lot of the life story leads into that. But I found myself in this professional environment and became a new person, a new young man, reshaped my identity. That probably is the most impactful early career kind of experience that I had, because I ended up becoming one of the top salespeople in the bank that I worked at. I I was promoted at 19 years old into a leadership position. I was the youngest assistant manager in the bank at the time. Maybe somebody had been there before me, earlier on. At 21, I was a branch manager, and it didn't make sense to people on the outside.
Yeah.
How could somebody so young, without a college education, high school dropout, be in this particular role?
Huh.
But the thing was, I stepped into it and believed it. And my clients, they believed what I was selling.
Huh. Interesting. So many questions around that. How has that affected you today? Like, how would you say that the
Yeah.
lessons that you pulled forward through your career, how has
Yeah.
it affected you today?
A lot of my peers, a lot of CEOs, a lot of conversation centers around this notion of imposter syndrome.
Uh-huh.
And I think that early experience taught me that there really isn't such a thing as an imposter syndrome. It's like just the personal insecurities that I faced.
Uh-huh.
If I look at my peers or other CEOs in the world, they're not actually always smarter than me or more capable than me. Some of them are taller, some of them are better looking, some of them are actually smarter, better educated, and so forth. But I can do what they do. And
Mm.
it's like I've been at the podium, I've held a microphone in front of crowds of 1,000 or more people,
Mm-hmm.
and it is nerve-wracking. But then I tell myself, everybody in the audience expects me to be there. So why
Mm-hmm.
don't I just give them what they're expecting? And
Hmm.
so it changes the perspective of imposter syndrome, but certainly doesn't alleviate the stress or the responsibility. It allows me to settle in and take ownership of the expectation that people have of me. So it's
Hmm.
like, get over my own insecurities and deliver what these people who are relying on me for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, so let's dig on that a little bit deeper. I'm with you on there's parts of the imposter syndrome concept that I bothered by. Like for example, I tell people let's do away with the whole fake it till you make it idea, and we call it practice it till you become it.
Yeah.
So it's more like just, try it out and see if it fits.
Right. Who wants
But
to be fake at
yeah,
anything ever?
yeah, and it's funny that one of the reasons I think people glob on the first time I heard imposter syndrome was when I went to a PhD program. I had zero business being in the room. I never forget the people that were in the room. I was sitting in the back going like, I do not belong here. I don't know how I got in the room. And one of the professors got up in front and said, you know how I mean, you can compare yourself wherever you go. And there was
Yeah.
this guy sitting in the front one that ended up being a really good friend of mine who had this beautiful mullet. I had a mullet as well. So that's the only thing that we
I
connected
had
on.
a mullet. Let's go.
And it was and
Yeah.
his was outrageous. Mine was outrageous, and I'm sitting in the back.
Yeah.
But he had already he had taught statistics classes. He had done studies for the state of California. He's like, and I'm like, I gotta just leave. I just felt that. And the professor, Dr. Kathy Pesdek, I'll never forget that she got up in front and she used that term imposter syndrome. This is late nine or early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's that feeling that you have no business being in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting about it was when I thought about it, the one thing about it that I am intrigued by, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that I don't think the imposter syndrome is all bad. That there's a
Mm.
sense of humility in that. And I know you to be a
Totally.
very humble person at the same time you have tremendous confidence. And you know what I mean? It's like, because
Yeah.
that's what gives you you have to have that realistic position on whether or not I do
Yeah.
belong in the room. And sometimes you don't. And I'm like, so how do you balance
Well,
humility
let's,
with that
yeah.
the necessary confidence? Because it's an interesting paradox, right? Like,
Words matter. And I think you and I could just have a whole
you're
hour-long
so
podcast
on
on
that.
words.
Uh-huh.
So you said the word belonging,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
So I asked the question, how can I create a sense of belonging for the people that are with me if I can't feel like I belong?
Yeah, it's well said.
Deep question. Now,
Uh-huh.
I don't like the word imposter syndrome, and I don't like the words fake it till you make it, because I'm not an imposter and I don't fake anything. I'm
Uh-huh.
actually, now, as I was young and immature, I would fake all kinds of stuff. I'd fake being tough. I'd fake being strong. I'd fake, right? But we can see right through that. Uh,
Yeah.
No, one of your keynotes on purpose and calling, I carry it around. I quote you all the time. Knowing myself allows me to show up and say, there are people in this room who are smarter, more accomplished, not better, but more seasoned. They're wiser, and here again, taller, better looking, make more money. All these comparisons, right? And I belong here. Both of those things are true.
Yeah.
And holding that dichotomy, I think, is a part of my process.
Yeah.
I aspire to be like, I put myself around people who have been down the road and around the corners that I'm endeavoring to travel down. And by virtue of that, they will have more wisdom, they will have more experience. And that doesn't threaten me, it excites me. I can only do that. And I mean, candidly, and this is no plug for the wild system, but I can only do that after doing the work, like what's in the wild toolkit.
Yeah.
A deep exploration of self in a space that is safe. I had an experience in life. I'm going, down a rabbit hole for a quick minute, but I'll bring it right back. I had an experience in my adult life where I was in the mountains of Colorado. I'm in a room full of 80 other men, and this is a deeply vulnerable weekend experience. And I stood in front of these men and I said, my name is Nick, and the one thing that I don't want anyone in the world to know about me is, and I filled in the blank. And it was the most shameful thing that I've ever done in my life. And I said it to a room full of 80 men. And they all said back to me, we see you and we accept you for who you are. This was a practice. Everybody in the room did the same thing. But I'll tell you, talk about, exercise in demons, if there ever was a thing, to say out loud the thing that I was the most ashamed of. Okay, so let me dial that back. Having gone through that experience, I have exposed the deepest shame in my life to a room full of 80 people. I can walk on any stage, anywhere, in front of anybody and say, hi, I'm Nick. I'm not going to tell that story, but this is who I am. And like, you can judge me. You can think whatever you want about me. It's not that I don't care what you think. I do care what people think, but it's not going to stop me.
Yeah. So interesting. I was thinking about we had a podcast that was published last week actually on vulnerability, and vulnerability is an interesting word because by definition, you and I love words and actually what they mean, but it's defined as the openness to being hurt. And we don't talk about that. We just throw around vulnerability like it's this good thing, like it's authenticity, which is different. Vulnerability by its definition is an openness to being hurt. So if you do share something, what makes you vulnerable is something that you have or you share or that's not there that ends up creating the possibility, the risk that someone will hurt you with it, which happens.
Absolutely. I'd say Brene Brown, bless her heart, did a lot of good work, and a lot of people took that sideways the wrong way. And I wrote in my book, Back-to-Back Lessons. It's a book of 100 lessons. They're really short. First one is that vulnerability is necessary for human connection. It's necessary. And the next one is that vulnerability without security is very dangerous. So if you're, look at me, world, this is who I am. I'm being vulnerable. Accept me. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Nobody wants that anyways. Like,
Nobody.
Do it in a safe space with the right people.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Nick. We could go, oh man. There's
Episode
stories two of us that are coming to mind, but I want to ask you about something. So I did a little homework, and I was fishing through a lot of your LinkedIn posts. Okay.
Oh dear. Okay.
And, you're like, where is he going to, speaking of vulnerability, what's he going to bring up? So I'm going to bring up somebody that you called out that many people, and I think you referenced this in your post, hope that the leadership at this organization will pay attention because a lot of people do have this frustration, but I'll tell you why I brought it up so let me tell you what the post was, and I'll tell you the why so the post starts with, hey, QuickBooks company.
Yes.
So I'm going to read it. Okay.
Let's go.
It says your company is, and by the way, I think we're both customers. So right? So at least I know what we are. Your company has really caused problems for one of my clients. We have called more than a dozen times over 2 weeks to address a payment transaction, and no one is able to help. We are told we will receive a call back. No one calls. We are told different information every time we call. No one can help. No one cares about the impact to the small business. His experience is incomprehensible. Whom from your company would like to step up and do some work? And I think you called out the CEO. But uh, so here's why I bring it up. So you know this, and the team at One Accord, and you, and so many deep friendships from wild leaders in our community. There's so many interactions and just interconnections. And I know that One Accord deals with not just, I'm not simplifying this, but a lot of the visible portions of business
Mm,
and also the invisible pieces as well. Wild Leaders has a much more stronger emphasis on the invisible piece.
yeah.
And it's one of the reasons when I always throw this question around when I get to know a CEO. I go, if you could go back to school and study two things, what would it be? And you know what the common answer is?
I'm curious.
Accounting or finance,
Yep.
one of those two,
Yep.
and psychology.
Yep. Oh,
Every
yes.
single time they're like, because my job is money and people. Now it's more
Yes.
than that. It's operations, but it's like all the things. And so there's these visible and the invisible parts of a business. And you say anything you want about that. Because when you talked about QuickBooks, I'm thinking this is a necessary system in our businesses,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
especially a small business, like small to mid cap businesses.
And
And you guys
QuickBooks dominates the market. They,
dominates the market.
hmm
And they're dealing with the visible portions, which are so critical. It's why things like EOS have taken off. Like people just don't have good operational systems that deal with the visible aspects. And then there's at least half, if not more, of the equation is all the things that people are feeling and thinking that are affecting what they're doing, that are
Yeah.
affecting the way they're doing together, which is basically performance, innovation, all those things that have to take place.
Yeah.
And we talk about trust being the bridge. I'm
Yeah.
so and it's like I'm so interested in sort of your thinking on those visible and invisible pieces, and for the
Yeah.
One Accord business, but for you personally, um, and what does trust in your mind have to
Oh,
do
man.
with that?
Yeah. There are three. There might be a Venn diagram in my brain right now that is QuickBooks, EOS, and the Wild Trust Index. Now, if I can pull this together, this is some genius stuff. Okay.
Okay.
So that QuickBooks post, I'm telling you that here's the story. The client that we were serving had a massive sale, a bigger sale than they've ever had before. And they billed a client, and the client paid electronically, right? ACH. And it was several $100,000, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And QuickBooks held the money. And I get it. That's a risk thing. I was a
Uh-huh.
banker 25 years. I understand money risk. Maybe it was fraud. Got it. I spoke with, here again, dozens of people, many of them frontline service people, right?
Uh,
Offshore, answer the phone. They're really good at saying my name. Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you for calling, Nick. Nick, don't worry. We're going to take good care of you, Nick. Like, but they're trained to do that. They lack trust in their organization to escalate, to make a decision in the moment to say, wow, this is actually a real issue. We need to escalate it. There wasn't
huh.
trust between the levels to say that if I escalate this, I'm not breaking some internal rule that I'll get in trouble. So the lack of trust prohibited them from taking my issue forward. Then when I finally got someone after my post, because I did, and actually many employees from QuickBooks reached out to me confidentially. That's
Did they really?
oh
Did
yeah.
they really?
Oh, yes. And if QuickBooks took the trust index, uh, they'd be in the jungle, man. They'd be in the jungle. Many of them reached out to me directly. And I actually had some people that contacted me that said, I actually want to help you. I want to protect the brand of QuickBooks that I identify with because I'm an employee and I'm a senior employee. And what they said was, I see what you are saying. You are right, but my boss doesn't trust me. Literally verbatim. Okay, so we've gone from QuickBooks to trust.
Yeah.
Now I'm going
Yeah.
to bring in EOS. So we at One Accord, we have a business operating system that we're competitors to EOS. Just I'll say it that way. We call it Oasis, the One Accord system. And we actually use it internally. We take our own medicine. So we don't just provide this to our clients, we use it internally. And as a part of our system, we have a 50-question survey that we would give to our clients and their employees. I gave that survey to our team, right? This was a year ago, kind of plus or minus, when I came in, and it was scary, man. It was scary. Talk about vulnerability. I'm asking everybody on the team here, like, not for nothing, but tell me where we suck. Like, just okay. And so, you know, you bring all these together. If a company like QuickBooks had the courage, I would say, to engage in the trust index with their team and then actually address those things, I wouldn't have had to make that post.
Building trust in your business starts with being able to measure it so that you can create a pathway for change. Our Wild Trust Index measures the drivers of trust at the personal, team, and organizational levels. We are building the largest database on the drivers of trust inside of organizations. This survey will inform growth imperatives and the necessary organizational change needed to fuel that growth. For more information, visit wildleaders.org, click on the Wild Trust platform, and get started with the Wild Trust Index today.
Talk to me about, now what's interesting too is this operational system. When I say this, I mean, I'm not minimizing that at all, because it's one of the reasons that it is so critical. Like, if you don't, it's amazing how many small to mid-sized businesses and even large businesses, by the way, have poor operational structures.
And we say operating system, people think like, you know, DOS or Linux, or, well, you know, they're thinking tech, but this is, I mean, it's as simple as how do you conduct a meeting and how do you facilitate accountability? But to your point, it's what's on the surface. We're looking at data, we're looking at key performance indicators after the fact. So what we do internally are two things. We use the One Accord operating system as our model, and we use the trust index to get ahead of like those leading indicators, these things that if people can tell me how they're feeling in the context of our organization or their teams on a level of trust, I know what the results are going to be 9 and 15 months down the road, because their level of trust and engagement affects their behavior, and those behaviors affect those things that become key performance indicators, but after the fact. So we need both, quite literally need both.
And let me get, just for people that are listening, let me give you a couple of examples of what Nick's talking about. And we call them, you know, they're like trust killers, basically. So if you think about the reality of the job, if someone, let's just say someone comes into a role and doesn't have a clear job description, so they don't even know what really their job is. So that's one of, it's an initial problem, right? Then you've got a person who has all kinds of, because we're human beings, so we have insecurities. So they don't really understand themselves very well, nor do they feel like they know their team members. What happens in an organization where there's a lack of alignment, a lack of clear structure? So I don't really know when we're going to meet next week, or what that meeting is going to be like, or we don't manage time well in our meetings. Something as simple as that. We don't know what strategic goals we're chasing. Okay, so you think about this individual comes into an organization, they have this feeling, and then on top of that, there's a lot of secrets. So team members are not really talking together because there's certain things they're not sure it's safe. And quite frankly, it may not be, right? Because people will use it against you. So what happens in us is for that person. And this is where it's a no-brainer, right? I hope I'm stating the obvious, is instead of performing, they're spending most of their time working around issues. They don't even know if they don't have a clear operational system, they don't know what to perform into. And if they don't have trust between team members, they're going to spend most of their time doing what psychologically is called emotional labor. I'm just working hard at just managing my feelings about everything, which we all know slows down performance and all that stuff. So Um,
I can
what?
assimilate. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
assimilate in my mind. I'm imagining Albert Einstein putting on his black suit and white shirt. I'm imagining, what used to be the adage that Zuckerberg would only wear hoodies or whatnot. And the question asked of these people is, why don't you spice up your wardrobe? And the answer is, well, I don't have time to think about those things. So if I can create an environment within one accord where the meetings are structured and they're predictable. I mean, predictability creates trust. It might sound boring, but I'll tell you, I trust boring people more than I trust exciting people, right? Like,
It's so true. Yeah.
seriously, because I
Right.
know what to expect. And if I know what to expect, that's kind of trust, right? So we have the same meeting and we're shifting this in the coming new year. We're trying something different, and it will be predictable. We will meet every other week for 90 minutes. This will be our agenda. When you show up, you will be expected to report on these things. This is the data that we're going to share with you. It's going to be more transparent than I feel comfortable with, which I think that's kind of a good thing. And we will rinse and repeat, and it will be the same every time. And
Yeah.
it's efficient. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to create something new every time. You're not coming with a story to tell to justify something of last week because it was new and it was unexpected. You're not guessing what mood is the boss in today. You just know that, okay, at 9:15, we're talking about data. And at 9:30, I'm going to talk about the things that I was assigned to do over the last 2 weeks. And if I
Yeah.
haven't done them, then I'm going to report on why I haven't, what I'm going to do about it. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
You know what's funny about that, Nick, is that I'm going to go get personal for both of us in just a moment, but this is my bridge into that. Um, is that one of the things that my team members know that I fight for, that I will never stop fighting for, is what I describe as consistent rhythms.
Mm.
And it's funny how much business pressure will cause you to consider sacrificing those rhythms.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
so one of the rhythms that I will not sacrifice is our Monday morning leadership team meetings.
Yeah.
And it's been very critical to me because I solve multiple challenges in those meetings, not just operational challenges, but also trust challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Without that moment together, especially because my team is all over the country, especially in a virtual work environment,
Right.
people don't see each other enough. And I think there's other benefits of virtual, but you have to have those rhythms of things that, and I think, like, to your point, it increases trust. The other thing
Yeah.
that I won't sacrifice is our monthly meetings where we go through one of the tools in the Wild Toolkit together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Nick, this is my bridge. Is you would think that our organization would never sacrifice that, but in moments of high pressure, we've
Yep.
had it's been kind of whispered,
There's a temptation.
maybe this month we should skip that conversation.
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
know why I don't? It's not because I'm trying to model it for every CEO we work with. Sure, that's important, but it's because I can't be sure that my team members will trust each other if we don't.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
can't be sure that we'll
So
identify
true.
gaps in our competence. I can't be sure that we will understand each other's competence. I can't understand,
Yeah.
it's like, so anyway, my bridge is, um, what is the greatest challenge you are facing as a leader today?
Oh, the greatest. uh okay, so the single word I'll use is discipline, and it connects into exactly what you just said. The urgent taking place of the important, the shiny object syndrome, the breaking of the rhythm. Um, it's so easy for the mind to justify what the heart desires. It's so easy for me to come up with a justification as to why we can't or shouldn't do the weekly meeting, the
Mm-hmm.
monthly meeting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
why it doesn't make sense to enter that prospect into HubSpot just yet. Like
Mm-hmm.
those basic block and tackle, and then encouraging, inspiring, motivating, um, inviting into accountability everybody on the team to perform, to show up with the same level of discipline. That's the challenge. And I would say it begins in myself, but very, a very close second is inviting everyone into the same level of accountability around discipline, and discipline of just the basics, the day to day. You use the word rhythm, and in my imagination, I was thinking of the movie Scent of a Woman, when Al Pacino takes the young woman on the dance floor, and he's blind, but he can lead her through a dance, and he can lead her through a dance mostly because he can trust the rhythm, the 4 count, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. He can trust that. Okay. Imagine trying to dance a beautiful dance without being able to trust the rhythm. When do you take the next step? Where do you go? How do you move? And if what we want is for our business, for our enterprise, for our nonprofit to operate, to be perceived as this beautiful waltz, then it's up to us as the leaders to set that rhythm so that everyone on the dance floor knows where to move, knows when the next step is, and they can trust in that. And in order to do that, right, I'm holding the drumsticks and I have to keep the beat. And that's not easy.
Yeah. It's one of the, and I just think this is such a great conversation. It's one of the reasons that, the research on leader development has made it pretty clear that most of learning and development, and this, whether it's leaders or individual team members, is occurring on the job. And that research is back to the 80s, 1980s, the last century, or the last millennia, right? So it's like, and it was very clear that most of those experiences were really tough times. And so I always tell people that, if you're going through a tough business moment, that the developmental laboratory is in place. That's one thing that's the potential that's there. But it's also, these are moments you don't want to repeat. So they're like not great when you go through them. And what's interesting is, like, this is to connect together what you were just describing in terms of our operational rhythms and also our people development rhythms, is that the powerful thing in that formula of creating that natural dance you were just, this is where my brain went, is when you connect that operational rhythm. And the operational rhythm inside of a person is literally their work today. And when you connect that job and that job they're doing with their team to their development, magical things happen. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that unbelievable moment. What is like, when you think about your exposure, I mean, Nick, you're exposed to so many different, you're like a walking spreadsheet of CEO interactions. And I mean this, like, literally, of owner founder interactions.
Yeah.
What's the pain point? If you were to, I know it's hard to get to that one thing, but what's the common story in founder CEOs of organizations that One Accord serves?
It's clear. It's who's next. It's who's my successor. There's the symptom is described as I don't have good people. That's an overstatement, right? We don't have the right people. I don't have the person to succeed me in this role. So, or the other person, right? So I call every one of my clients Bob. They're just Bob. I'm talking to Bob. And maybe Bob has a controller, VP of finance, CFO named Sally, right? And Bob will say, I can't risk losing Sally. There's nobody there that can replace her. There isn't that succession. I can't, Bob would say, I can't step away from the business. Nobody can do it like me. Right. And the problem that we solve more than any other problem is reducing the company's dependence, the business's reliance on Bob. We call it owner dependence. That's the problem that One Accord solves. And so Bob will say, nobody else can do it but me. And I would say, yeah, well, we can help you. Right. And we get there. Okay. And then Bob would say, but nobody else can do it but Sally. Well, we can help you. And it goes to, I mean, this connects it connects to what you just said around the development of people and magic things happen. If Bob
Mhm.
had been looking 5 years ahead 5 years ago, think
Mm.
about that. If he'd been looking 5 years ahead 5 years ago, he would have been recruiting people in at entry level, junior level that didn't appear to be capable of replacing Sally.
Mhm.
But over 5 years, probably could
Mhm.
with the right investment in their development. And then, Bob will say, well, that's expensive and I can't afford to do that. And you know what? He's right. It's
Mhm.
it's challenging to operate and grow a business. It's risky, it's expensive, it's all of these things. And if we had done 5 years ago, what needed to happen 5 years in the future today would look different. Investing in people, growing, building culture, building cultures of trust that are the environments within which talent can flourish. And by the way, talent is attracted. All
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
we're called in, at the 1 yard line, needing a touchdown, and Bob doesn't know if he should pass or run the ball. We know he should have run the ball, but sometimes he wants to pass. And for those that understand that reference, I still feel your pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if you would, I think you would probably agree with this. Something I say and I throw around because we've done some podcasts and I, of course, do writing on succession like you do because it's a part of what so many people feel. And
Yeah.
I could describe succession planning as leadership development after you become desperate.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Right.
this
So it's exactly what you just said.
my colleague Mike Cadle will. I mean, he'll go right into it. Replacement planning is not succession planning. Like
Huh.
teeing up, who's the body that's going to sit in Sally's seat is not succession planning. It's who's the person that we can grow into being not just a replacement for, but better than. Like, why would you miss the opportunity to replace Sally with someone only as good as Sally? Like
Yeah.
succession, success is kind of in that word, right? Um, I represent the succession plan for One Accord. Jeff founded the organization kind of unofficially in 99, officially under the name of One Accord in 05. And, he's 18 years my senior. He'll keep working for another 20 years, but I am the next 20 years or 25 years of One Accord.
Yeah.
And it's clear that, where I will go ought to be greater than where we have been. I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be.
Yeah. That is so good. Um, Tell me just one last question, and then I know Sabbath has a final question as well.
Yeah.
We got to do this again. We need part two for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Cheers to long form podcasts.
Here we go.
Um, what does trust have to do with succession
I mean, it's
and
like,
independence and owner dependence, like you just
yeah,
described?
it's like Tina said, what's love got to do with it?
Yeah.
I mean, the antithesis is a better, what is it without trust? Like without trust, we have nothing, or we have something that will become nothing. It's inevitable. It just is
Mhm.
inevitable in all facets of life. I mean, business at its, you can break it down to some fundamentals, and one of them is business's relationships.
Mhm.
I can't get anything done at the scale I want to by myself, not
Mhm.
even with Chat GPT or Gemini or Grok or whatever AI. I
Mhm.
have to do it with people.
Mhm.
And I can entice them with dollars only long enough before I run out or they find more dollars. I can scare them with, whatever abuse and anger only long enough until they leave. But if I want to actually build something, if I want a lasting marriage, if I want a relationship with my children, if I want friendships like I've had since grade school, if I want a business that will last for another 25 years, my clients have to trust me. The market needs to trust my brand. My team needs to trust one another.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we end up like QuickBooks, getting a post from some random guy saying, hey, does anybody actually care? And the truth is that people do care, but they work in one of those jungles of trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nick, this has become my tag for the last few weeks, is that trust is more than a feeling. In fact, Boston wrote a song about that, that it's more than a feeling, that it has a chemistry. That's where research becomes powerful, because it has a chemistry. And if it has a
Mm,
chemistry, it means that we can measure it. And if we can measure it, not to become overly mechanistic, because it is a feeling also, but that feeling comes from certain variables being in place. And so if you can measure it, then you can begin to pull certain levers, which is why I think that CEO I described to you feels hope.
yeah.
Man, what a conversation, Nick. I just so grateful for your friendship and for this. And we will do part two. This is
Awesome.
just getting us warmed up, but thank you for this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another Al
absolutely.
Pacino reference. I'm just getting warmed up.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you for that warm up conversation. Nick, we want the people who are listening or watching to know how they can connect with you. So tell them where the best place to connect with you is personally, professionally, and then with the work that you do at One Accord.
Oh, thanks for the question. So I'm prolific on every social media channel there is, save for Pinterest. I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. But Nick Anderson at One Accord on any social channel, you'll find me. Email is nick.anderson@oneaccord.co. Oneaccord.co is our URL. I'm pretty easy to find. The Google can find me, and yeah, I would welcome any inbound call, email, social media, DM with a question about what we talked about today, or how we might help someone increase the enterprise value in their company. That's what we do.
And to
Perfect.
what he said before, if he doesn't get right back, it's because he's in a moment of focus. So he will get back.
That's right.
And Nick, we have one last wild question. Are you in a season of accepting yourself or changing yourself?
Uh, both. Both. Uh, I'm not in a 12-step program, but I do pray that God can grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things about myself that I can,
Hmm.
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The wisdom to know the difference. That is good.
so
Thanks,
good.
Nick.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this Wild Conversation podcast. For more information, visit wildleaders.org, click on the Wild Trust platform, and get started with the Wild Trust Index today.